live now, I hope. So, Warapan, do you want to say anything before we start?
Welcome back, everyone. I'm happy to see you all again in July 24th. So I wish you have a good time during the last week, last month also. So, and you have gone through the practice road, isn't it? That is the last method from last time. The road, RUDE. I don't know, you have time to look at that. So anyway, Prajan will guide us this time again. That to repeat, what does that mean?
Okay, so welcome back to the club this Sunday morning. First of all, let's practice as you hear the gong, making yourself comfortable and sitting meditation. So recapping yourself, just to relax your body and mind. Leaving all your responsibilities aside. Connecting with the body. Feel the entire body. And spend a few moments taking a few long breaths and release. And as you breathe in and breathe out, experiencing the entire body. I'm mindfully aware of all the sensations. And you may notice that your mind automatically settles on the primary object that you've been working with, whether that is the incoming breath and outgoing breath at the nose or the rising, falling of the abdomen. So as soon as you notice that your mind is settling on the primary object, spend some time observing that primary object, resting, settling, and relaxing. And mindfully aware of the sensations around that particular area of our primary object. Suppose rising and falling of the abdomen, then spend some time observing rising, falling, and making a mental note of it as it rises and falls. So rising, falling. Our incoming breath and outgoing breath. Whichever object that you feel comfortable to pay attention to, whether the breath or the abdomen, these two parts is a material component that is functioning. Try to notice different texture, different layers of it. Sometimes you may feel a heaviness. Sometimes you may feel the smoothness, the heat, or the constant flow. And there is a mind that is always present there to be aware of it. So in order to know these functions, there is a feeling that we feel. And as we feel, we have a perception of this is rising and this is falling, or this is incoming breath and this is outgoing breath. There's a perception of it. And within that, you're conscious of it. So consciously aware of each items or objects means our mind and our body unites, become one. Mind is undistracted by the senses. No need to rush to move from one to another. Just be mindful and aware of that each thing that arises. Do not think about it. Do not try to change the phenomena. And do not try to hold on to it, or do not try to push it away. Our simple job is to attending. And doesn't matter what arises, realizing that object and understanding as they truly are, whether that is the sound that you are hearing, or whether that is the sensations in your body, or whether that is the thought that you're having. And observing them without adding any commentaries, but objectively, as like sitting at the bank of the river and watching the river flow. As a flow, let it be. So observing or being an observer and observing all these activities. And rather than trying to grasp or trying to push them away, accepting the reality of its arising, remaining, and fading away. It's like rather than interfering with the traffic, different cars, accepting they are there and being mindful and detach, not grasp, and understanding as they truly are and let it be. So, as you hear a gong, slowly open your eyes and come out from meditation. The first gong, you can bring your attention to your eyes. Second gong, making an intention to open your eyes. And third, slowly opening your eyes and back to normal. Okay. So, once again, so good morning, everyone. I heard that everyone was talking about the COVID and getting a COVID. I also had a COVID last week of June. Actually, I had a plan to go on to one of the tallest mountains in Scotland. That's called the Ben Nevis. And we drove about 4 hours from the temple. And the plan was to stay overnight and climb the Ben Nevis. And after we arrived, I felt something not right. Actually, on the way, I felt my body was aching and feeling uncomfortable. And then on that evening, my body was like shaking, sweating, headaches and pains and aches going on. And then I went early bed. Next day when I woke up, I couldn't move. Then I realized this must be the COVID. And I call it not a COVID-19, it's a COVID-22. So that made me in a state of a catch-22, whether to go up to the mountain or whether to sleep or whether to come back to the temple. So and then I stayed all day in the caravan, and other members went for a walk, went to see the waterfalls. And then having seen my poor condition, they came back during the lunchtime. And then having seen my condition was poor, they decided to come back to the temple. And by the time when I came back, and it really hit me hard, I was like, oh gosh, no voice, no energy, sweating, headaches. I was like, I couldn't move, although I wanted to move for a couple of days. And I reflected, oh, this is my perfect time to reflect. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one is coming to bother me. And I started paying attention to body aches and try to practice the body scan. Yeah, each 7 parts body scan, if you remember. And that wasn't easy. Yeah, that wasn't easy because the mind hasn't got that strength to continue focusing on one object or one task. Often it was like, oh, why I'm having this such pain? It just drifts away. And then often, oh, why I am having this? Goes into the thoughts and the perceptions and proliferating like that. And after a couple of days, we closed the center, nobody allowed to come in. After a couple of days, I felt like I can walk around and there wasn't any pain, not much pains. And I was just sitting and I felt like I can do something. I went out and do something, but I can't. Yeah, I felt like no energy, like feeling a lethargy. And I was like, oh, you are a capable man. You are still young. Look at you, you can't do anything. So I looked at it that way. And even like there was a feeling of guilt that why I can't do. And there was a thought of, oh, you have nothing. You can walk now, you can eat now, your voice is coming back. Why aren't you working? And people may tell you off like that. So in those conversations that are going on in my head, there's like a constant talking going in. Never stop chatting. And then quite often time, and then I just pay attention to that thoughts, and then I smile to myself pretty much a lot throughout the day. Smile to myself, look at you. You are talking. Nobody, but you are talking. I like that. And then with that, there was a less distraction. All the senses were like, although open, but not that engaged with the things. Less distraction and more onto paying attention to my own self. So with that, in the practice, what we need to understand that the more we practice, it will help us during the time of difficulties immensely. It's a really, really good skills to have. And it helps us not only to understand ourselves, but also the situations and the conditions. Because normally, what happens is that whenever there is a situation arises, we tend to have two types of reactions or rationalizing it. The first rationalize is positive rationalizing, positive thinking, we call it, right? Thinking, oh, this is good, it's okay. And a second, we are rationalizing into a negative, or called a negative thinking. Right? In these two thoughts, and now the consequences of the thinking positive, it brings happiness, it brings comfort, it brings wellness, and we feel simply enjoy the moment that we have. Whereas if that's a negative reactions or negative rationalizing, then everything is miserable. And pretty much of the time I was feeling of that miserable moments. Okay. But with the mindfulness, having practiced, I managed to come back quite often and quite a lot and reflect on it. And I reflected a motivation about the further doing, further practice, and understanding the environment that I am, and routinely again and again coming back to the body and the mind, observing. And observation was like completely objective observation was going on. So with that deeply connected furthermore to understand that how our senses work, and then how our mental state takes place. I remember reading one of the books, classical writings. It's about the questionnaire. It's called the Melinda's Questions. King Melinda, sometimes is known as a Melinda or Alexander, who traveled to India and had a chance to meet with a monk, so-called Nagasena. And Melinda, but my understanding is that that wasn't the Alexander, but probably the descendants of the Alexander who was who conquered the northern India. He became very fascinated with the Indian philosophy and went around talking to different people, different religious leaders. So, and somehow he came to contact with the Buddhist monks, and all the Buddhist monks also frightened to converse with the king, King Melinda. So the Buddhist monks decided to appoint a very young, learned, qualified monk called Nagasena. So they were having a discussion or a question answer or a debate. And then Nagasena said that he would not go to the palace for any debates, because that will be king's palace. So he can order in any case whether he wins or he loses. So he decided ask the king if he wanted to debate with him to come to temple. And it happened that the king Melinda visited the temple. And as soon as King Melinda visited the temple and met the Venerable Nagasena, King Melinda said, I have asked. That was the first sentence, I have asked. And Melinda was again very clever monk. He said, I have answered. So and then King Melinda said, who is I? Who is Nagasena? Yeah? And then the Venerable Nagasena said, Nagasena is a conventional name that was given by a group of people. And this is in front of your majesty. And then King Melinda further asked, then where is Nagasena? Is it the eyes? Is it the nose? Is it the tongue? Is it the head, the limbs of the body? So he goes on one after another, where is the Nagasena? And then the Nagasena said, no, 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 no. This is not the Nagasena. And then at the end, the king asked, then where is Nagasena? So Nagasena, rather than replying straight away, he asked, Their Majesty, how did you come to here? So the Majesty, the king, Melinda said, oh, I came on a cart. I came on a cart. So then Nagasena asked, where is the cart? Is it the wheel? Is it the ox? It goes on with the small parts of the cart. And King Melinda said, no. And then where is the cart? So King Melinda said, the entire things, the combination of all these little parts is called a cart. And then Nagasena said, Your Majesty, so it is. Nagasena is also the combination of all entire things. And that's called the Nagasena. So that means that in our body, we have so many different parts. And yet that is, we cannot define each and individuals as this or that, as us. But once it's combined, all of it, then that becomes the part. Now, when we talk about this, in a Buddhist term, our body, or sorry, our life is combination of our body and the mind. And this body that we can feel, we can touch, we can see, is made out of 4 elements. So 4 elements, as earth element, water element, a heat element, and the wind element. So these 4 elements combined, once it comes together, then this entire body, which is the material form, creates. And this alone doesn't work. It has to have a mind too. And this mind, again, classification of a mind here divides into 4 other parts too. Combination of other 4 parts is known as mind. That includes feeling. Whatever feelings that we have, well, the moment when the mind comes to contact with this material form, And then we can observe the feelings. And in that feeling, the recognition and the perceiving of that this feeling is pleasant or unpleasant, then that is called in Buddhist term called a sanya, or perception. And that perception, again, based on previous our experiences. And that two parts are again helping us to understand what's going on. And the third part is called the formation, evolutional formation. And these are three, the feelings, perception, and volitional formations, are the associates of the mind. Based on that, then that's why we realize, we know that this is there, and that's a consciousness, the last one, called vijnana. Now, the mind factor, we have 4 factors, and then the material factor, also 4 factors. And the material factor, that's 4 elements, and in the mind factor, the 4 mind and mind associates. Now, these things will happen. And with these things, we can realize when our mind becomes stable, when our mind becomes steadied. And with that, we will be able to recognize that things, whenever we come to contact, suppose I sees an object, the visible object. Yeah? When we see the visible object, actually that visible object is just a temporary object that comes to contact with us. And if we know that it's just come to contact, and if we do not pay attention to it, it won't stay with us. As I said previously, watching it but not owning it. Yeah? We see it but we don't own it. And similar here, we see it but we are not owning it. And understanding that that object is just for the temporarily, then we will not be grasping, we will not be taking it on. Yeah? And here, normally what happens is that a lack of a mindfulness, lack of understanding that it's this temporary object that has come to contact with us. What we do is we react to get it, or we react to discard it. And this reaction normally causes the trouble. And that reaction is normally we tend to go into it and owning it. And the moment when we try to own it, it's like, apart from that, everything is not important. And this is the only thing that I want. This is a grasping nature starts. And when this grasping nature starts, then our mind becomes more polluted. Pollution begins. Pollution will begin there. So that's why in the practice of a meditation, in order to see these functioning factors, so the first object is a material thing that is combined, or the combination of 4 elements. And these 4 elements become existence the moment when there is a contact, I comes to contact with that object, and that feeling arises that, okay, I have seen it. So they're consciously aware of that object. And when we become conscious of that object, we put our perception of that object. And that perception coming from our previous existence, previous experiences. that object is good or a bad, like or a dislike. And as a result of that, what we do, we form, or we put our volition, we call it chetana, or intention to take it on or intention to leave it away. And that is the factors of the mind. So in one single sight of an object, we can recognize, or we can identify the 5 aggregates and how it is forming to the miseries. So that's why the practice of a mindfulness meditation help us to see them as they truly are, and rather than grasping it, we will be able to let it be. And we will be able to judge. Although in the practice of a mindfulness meditation, at the beginning, it says, or it suggests that we shouldn't have any judgments, but over the period of a time, as our mindfulness develops, we have to make decisions. We have to judge whether that is suitable or not suitable, whether that is beneficial or not beneficial, whether that is helpful or not helpful. Okay? And so when we develop in that way, what happens is that we will be working towards the cultivation of a wholesome state of the mind. Okay? Wholesome state of the mind. So that's why practice of a Buddhist meditation is to cultivate wholesome state of the mind, or positive state of the mind. And in this way, what will happen is that anything that is a negative, doesn't matter how this negative is creeping into our minds and our hearts, we will be able to detect it. And that detection, once we have detected, rather than letting seeping into our hearts, we will be able to block it or seal. So that's why the mindfulness is like a shielding ourselves. We're able to seal it, not letting it coming into our hearts and minds. And then whatever it's embedded that may be subconsciously saved from the previous experiences or from previous activities, which is negative and harming us, then that also we will be able to overcome, uprooting it. And then further, we will be able to develop our habits towards cultivating the positive mindset. Okay? And this development of a positiveness is not easy. Okay? It's not easy. There will be lots of defilements, lots of hindrances coming to takes us away. Takes us away. The moment when we want to do good things, there will be always some form of excuses coming into our mind, like even the meditation. The moment when we come to meditate, we will be thinking of something else that is more important than this one. Yes, just the sitting comfortably here is kind of a waste of time. Nothing happening, getting nothing. And with that, what happens? The hindrance simply takes us away. And in Buddhism, it's called a Mara. Okay, Mara is the evil thoughts, evil state that always drags us away and hinder from what we are going to do, which is wholesome. That's called hindrances, always always inviting us to hinder or hindering our practice. So that's why it's really important to have that mindset that, okay, I have to have this determination and dedication to practice. So that's why in order to get the real benefit of the practice, we have to make sure that at least of 10-15 minutes per day developing this habit of meditation. And eventually what happens is that practice if you notice, after sitting for 10 minutes or 15 minutes of meditation, next half an hour will be in a meditative state. Although you have given up, or although you have stopped meditating, but next half an hour, your mind will be still clear, mind will be still zoned and very fresh and clear. So you will be able to focus on the things much better another half an hour if you're practicing for 10 minutes. And then suppose if you're meditating for half an hour, definitely it will be more than an hour after the meditation, it will be there helping you to be mindful of and then having a clear mind. So that's why this 10-15 minutes each day practice is encouraged for everyone to develop. And with that, again, further, I have also given you a tips to practice the 15 seconds of a practice in the daily life from the beginning of waking up, which again, if you can do, it reboosts your cultivation of mindfulness. And that will help us to recognize who am I in a real sense, and what do I want in a true sense. Okay? And that requires the constant practice. Okay? And then with that, we will be able to differentiate this body as a 5 aggregates: the matter, the feelings, the perception, the volitional formation, and consciousness. And these 5 aggregates, again, simply we will be able to recognize the moment one sighting, when we see one thing or when we hear something, these will be formed immediately. That's what the practice is, to recognize the moment when our 6 senses come to contact with the objects, and then ability to understand that these are just for temporarily. Okay? And having this understanding, we will be able to stop proliferating further and let it be. And with this, we become more drawn into ourselves and knowing our own self. Okay? So with this, I give you this as a reflection for today. And before practicing, if you have anything to share or anything you want to ask, please do so. Anybody? If not, then we will practice and then later have a question answer. Okay. So in that case, let's practice then. Okay. As you hear the gong, sitting comfortably and practice. So bring your attention to the moment here and now. Observing the sitting body. And spend some time on the primary object that you are working with. So rising, falling, or breathing in, breathing out. And settling down, grounding yourself on the primary object. And consciously bring your awareness to be mindful of each object that comes to you. And each object that we observe is ability to observe it due our senses coming to contact with it. So bodily sensation, the body is coming to contact with that sensation. And we recognize it, perceive it, and we choose to receive or leave it. So we are making conscious decisions over that object that we are perceiving. And if we are not mindful of that object coming and not able to be mindful of it, we will be making judgments, grasping or neglecting. So the moment when we come to realize the different experiences, not able to understand its arising and state of staying on a vanishing, we tend to grasp, and as a result of that, we will have stress and other issues. But if we have understood this in a natural form as impermanent, it's a changing, it's not gonna last for a long, we will not be grasping it. So developing a right attitude to that feeling, to that sensation. And bring your attention to be mindful of your body, feeling the entire body. The earth element, which is the body, is feeling heavy and the water that combines our cohesiveness in the body. The heat in the body. And the breath of the air. When these four elements are in balance, and we have a healthy body. So mindfulness helps us to recognize and keep the balance of these four elements. And that's again influenced by outside objects, environments that coming through the senses. When weather is cold, it affects to the body. When weather is hot, again, similar, it affects the body. And slowly bring your attention to inward within yourself, to be mindful of observing the feelings. How are you observing? How do you perceive it? And when you're perceiving it, what are the reactions? Intentional reaction. And how are you paying attention to it? Consciously aware of this activity. So observing the phenomena that arise, perceiving them as they truly are, but again, if you feel that your mind is still wandering and not settled, then again, simply bring your attention back to body, settle down, pay attention to the breath, finding the primary object and working with it. So as you hear a gong, slowly come out from meditation and reflect. Okay, so anyone, anything? Today a little bit heavy subject. Stefan? No?
No, nothing
Okay.
special. No
So,
question.
okay. Varapon, do you have anything to share? Your practice? No? Okay. Right.
If no
So in
one
that case, oh, no
share.
voice. Yes. So sorry.
If no one wants to share,
Okay. So,
I can share from the experience. Just to complement the Ajahn
yeah.
said previously, that is about the practice meditation or practice the sati, right? I don't know, in English it's mindfulness. So it is helped me a lot in the, I would say, critical situation, the situation that I cannot manage myself. So I have one case in 3 weeks ago, before the COVID. I have many experience during the tough time last month. So I was so tired. I don't know what happened with my body. People said is I have a less pressure in the blood, but I don't think about that. During I have to be in the class, and then I have to present. I have to convey my stuff. You know that I have to present for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. I have kind of, I don't know how to call it, how it's turning around. I could not standing. I lose the energy, everything. But in that moment, I got the feeling. I I realized, oh, I know what's going to happen with me. But then I know this day or that day, I didn't feel very okay. But I went to the class. However, during the class, I start behave strange with the feeling, and then I step back. I don't know. It's automatically that it come to me that I have to stay with my breath. It's automatically that I have to concentrate of my breath in and out. And that moment it helped me to know what's going to happen with me. And I hear my voice. I hear myself that how to control myself. It is know by automatically that I can standing stable and not moving like this. It's thing like in the movie. I would say it's slow motion, but I can catch every moment of the feeling and even the, the message that I convey to present. And that is the moment that I feel, wow, I can separate of suffering. It is true that it comes automatically that I can manage, but it's really that I cannot continue to do long. Okay, it's just like one moment. I just stay. I just like I take a step to hold my breath. It's just like that. I don't know how to explain. It's so difficult, but it helped me. I just want to share this because I practice the meditation every day. Yes, at least minimum 20 minutes per day. This is minimum. I do for hours. But it's when I have a clinical situation that I have to perform and it's happening with me like that. So it come automatically that tell me that what I have to do. And then I just convey that presentation to finish. And I came back to sit down and I said, I have done that. I didn't feel anything that I so suffer or I'm not suffer. Even I have no feeling about that. It just focus what I'm going to say and it's done. And then I came back home and feel like, what happened to me? But it happened. It's just like keep continue to do breathing and then it's slowly and the body is come back to normal. This is one example. This is 3 weeks ago. And then during the COVID, one example. During the COVID, it teach me a lot that helped me to see that the mind and the body that Ajahn just explained is really helpful to see it's not same thing. Because I have to do the test, I have to do the final test from my class. Then I could not read any book. Even my mind is so pure and so strong that I'm ready to read the book. But the body cannot continue to do it. I start to read and then I start coughing and the body is weak. And I try to push, but it doesn't make sense. So it led me to step back again to remind me that moment that again, the body is the body and the mind is mind. Just stay calm, let it go, and then practice meditation. It comes automatically to tell me what I have to do. And then it just start again to see the body, lay down, see the body, what happened, breathe in, breathe out, be conscious, and then everything fine again. So it just helped me to recover so quick. Like 3 days, I can feel much better and very fast. And then again, I go to the class, I do the test. I have done that by the same experience, which is like to focus on what I'm going to say, what I'm going to present. You know, see that is see. I know that the people in the class, I see everybody, but I'm not attached to it. It just keeps separate. I don't know how to explain it. Just see it, look at it, do it, and then it's done and gone. So I don't know what to say, but it helps you when you are in the critical situation. For me, it's a critical situation, but it's not so long. It just passes like, and you wake up again. It's new day again. It's better and better. So I don't know what to. I just want to share that to compliment that is the practice meditation. It helped me a lot.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that insight. So that's why it comes with the practice. Important as ability to recognize that when it happens, it is there, it happened. Recognition is one of the key for the overcoming all the other difficulties. The moment when we recognize, the journey begins. But most of the time, the problem is we do not recognize. And as a result, we are having a bath with the dirty water again and again, thinking that I'll be okay, I'll be okay. So we have to realize the situation is not conducive. Situation is not right. And that realization brings the awareness. So that's why, another sense, mindfulness means ability to remember. Ability to remember that I've got this tool. I've got this tool to be in the present moment, being here and now. And that tool, again, it's so simple. What we have to do is just be with the breath. Nothing more than that. Be with the breath. Simple as that. The problem is when we actually do it, it's not that simple. It's really, really difficult, really, really hard. But over the period of a time of a practicing, at least of like 20 minutes or 15 minutes of a day, gradually shapes our mind, it changes the habit patterns, and that also gradually affect to our own body and also the mental states. And that again will help the family members and also the people in the community as well. So this, as little as 10 minutes has got so many benefits for ourselves, for our body, for our mind, well-being of our mind and the body, and also helping members and a community. And the problem is the continuity, the routine. The routinely doing is the key, and which is always, as I said, we find something else more enjoyable, more beneficial, and then we move on to that. And that's again, if you look at the wisdom part of the practice of a meditation, always ask us to investigate. It's called Dhamma Vichaya, the wise reflection, that whether that is beneficial or not, helpful or not, suitable or not, conducive or not. So, and that will shapes our attitude. So that's why that attitude will again transforms the happy or unhappiness in our life. And that happiness and unhappiness in our life defines the relationship with ourselves, relationship with the family members, and the relationship with the other community. And that begins from ability to be here and now in the present moment. So that's why the ability to live in the present moment is so important, and it takes a lot of practice, and that's why it's a skills for a life that we can develop. And once it's become a skill, it's like it's with us all the time. Right? The ultimate practice of meditation is not about just having a calm and relaxed and alert state of the mind. It's also, sorry, a sneeze. It is also ability to differentiate. This body is one thing, our mind is another. Right? When we able to differentiate between this body is one thing, our mind is another, then all the pain and aches that we have, that becomes simply in this body, not my body. Right? Pains and aches that we experience is simply a tool to connect with this body, and the mind will be there presenting with the body. So the unification becomes like a real bond between body and the mind. These pains and aches. But again, these pains and aches, whenever that arises, normally our intention is to push them away and immediately free from it, which is not the case in the practice. In the case of the practice, we are not trying to push them away. We are not trying to overcome as soon as possible, but taking a great opportunity to learn that, okay, I am aware of this pain, I'm aware of this sensation, and in the meantime, consciously aware that this body is there, right? And that helps to overcome these pains without any trouble. And the pain is there, the suffering will not be there. So suffering is our choice, so suffering will not be there. And with that, what happens is that gradually we see this body into different elements in one thing, and another, our mind also, rather than thinking that this is a single mind, we will be seeing it as a series of activities going on, and that series of activities that comes together, that becomes a one mind. Okay? So in order to have a one conscious mind, it has to have feeling. Yeah. So in order to have a feelings, again, first we have to have a contact. Yeah. So our body comes to contact, or our eye comes to contact, or our ear comes to contact with the sound, or our nose comes to contact with the smell, like that. So the moment when two things comes together, that arises the sensation, the feelings. And then on that feeling, so there will be a perception, and with that perception there is this cetana, or the intention. And once this intention is there, then we become conscious about it. There's so many factors involved. The funny thing here is that as we develop our consciousness, develop our mindfulness, we see that the different feelings, whether that is the pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling, is only one feeling arises. Okay, same with the perception, and then there will be only one perception at a time. But whereas a cetana, or the intention, can arise many at the same time. Okay? Intention to do, intention to have, intention to push it away, intention to grab, and then thinking, or bodily doing, or speaking, or even that is towards the negative or a positive, or just let it be. There's a whole spectrum of this, the intention involves. And again, these can be worked only when there is a consciousness involved. Okay? So that's the consciousness is the kind of a unified mind that is observing it, and that will be able to will be there, and only then we see it. Okay, so that's why the practice will help us to understand that these are what we call as two major parts of this body, and this mind itself is again a combination of so many other factors. Okay? So many other factors. When these other factors comes together, then it forms the one part is the mind, one part is the body. And then when these two separate, we are still not the ourselves. It has to come together. Once these two comes together, then it becomes our life. Okay? Our life, we are. Now, this body, again, is combined of these four elements, this earth, water, fire, and air. This is again constantly changing. Okay, this is constantly changing, which is hard to see, hard to observe. More so, it is hard to see our feelings, despite this feeling arises and vanishes so quick. There is a simile given. This feeling arises, it's like when rain drops, it hits the surface of the water and it creates the bubble. And this bubble, water bubble, will not last long. Creates, and again, it fades immediately. So that is the nature of the feeling. And yet, we are so engraved, or we are so we have been so attractive to this feeling, and this momentary arising of this feeling, we take it so immediately that this is like the only thing I have, right? And that's how the rest begins. Same with the this perception. Again, this perception only possible when there is a feeling. Right? Without the feeling as a base, we will not have any perception of anything. So that's why there have been so many experiences saved in our consciousness. They never come onto the surface. There are so many stories we have already forgotten. It's already embedded in our subconsciousness. But the very moment when there is a contact, when this feeling arises, it just pops out. As memories comes back. So it's again based on feeling, this perception arises. And this perception again happens in only two forms. One about the future, and one is about the past. And remember, these two things again happens in the moment here. And that is the moment we need to be mindful of more. And this moment when we understand that whether that we are thinking of the past or whether we are worrying about the future, that's happening here in the moment, then mindfulness begins to start. And there will be less activities going on. So we will not create, or we will have no intention to furthering, keeping it, or rejecting it. So first thing that we will be able to stop from our practice is this intention to do something. So we stop. And then again, we are consciously aware of these things happening. So we able to see that. And this going into a little deeper. So this is simply not just I wanted to give you the little deeper understanding of it, that rather than just looking for the calmness, stillness, and enjoying and happy, need to go into the real meaning of it, so that will lead us to understand the separation and the combination and the coexistence and things. So eventually then we will have a deeper understanding of a meditation. Right? So that's why the first thing we will be able to distinguish and differentiate these mind-body and how this mind-body works. So that is the first knowledge called the Nama Rupa Paricheta Jnana, ability to distinguish between mind-body and how this mind-body works. And that again happens in a single moment of mindfulness, when we able to mindful that where are we having this phenomena, an ability to catch that object, an ability to see how these functions so rapidly in a viral. So the moment when we are mindful of it, we will be able to stop and see it clearly, what's happening here, an ability to see who we really are. Whereas if we are not mindful, then we will go into the spiral of a process of building and creating furthermore an ability not to have the not able to see clearly things as they truly are. Okay, I think today is a little heavy. Heavy information. I hope you can grasp. So I encourage you to practice like 10-15 minutes per day. And the second will be like at least for one routinely physical activity. Be mindful of that. Let's say you're walking up and down the steps and the stairs. When you go to work, mindful of walking down and walking down from the stairs. And then when you're coming back from work, walking up the stairs. Or maybe this mobbing, cleaning every day. And you're mindful of that, and it's just making your mindset that, okay, this is my meditation time. Now I am hoovering the whole room, whole house, and a mindful hoovering, or cleaning, okay, mindful cleaning. So with that, you are gaining two. Your house will be clean as well as you're developing your mindfulness. Okay. And if possible, half an hour in a 1 week, spend time for yourself, free from everything, and just for half an hour for yourself. If possible, 1 hour, but half an hour would be fine. And I believe that if you can do these three things, you will be much happier than what you are already. Okay, so before we practice the loving kindness meditation, anyone has got anything? Anybody sharing?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Incognito, but just thinking about what you said about mind and body, that we have to be able to differentiate and realize what happened in between the mind and the body. But sometimes it's so connected, like you have something on your mind and you keep going back to it, like a thought that it's been there in the past or the worry of the future. They have the reaction into the body, like you can't sleep, you feel uncomfortable. How can we work on both, that we recognize that feeling has create that reaction to the body, and or when the body has some uncomfortable condition, is that something to do because we have something in the our subconscious or something like that? I don't know if that makes sense, but that was something that I have in mind that I want to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, when we have thoughts or wandering thoughts, first person to be affected is ourselves. And how do we recognize that? And that recognition is bodily sensations. Okay, it affects to our body. And now with that, we will be able, if our mindfulness is strong enough, we will be able to recognize the tension in the body, temperature in our body, palpitation in our body, heartbeat in our body, and emotional, the breath. Okay? Breath also changes. So in those cases, that's why in order, the question is how to deal with it. Rather than dealing with that thinking mind, observing the sensation that has created or the side effects of that thinking that is occurring in our body. So pay attention to that relevant or dominant sensation, and that's also known as the object. So we will be paying attention to that dominant other objects in our body. Okay? And then after paying attention to that other object of the body, or the feelings in the breath, what happens is that that thought simply fades away. Sometimes it's not complete fading away, but the power of that, the intensity of that thinking will decrease. When the power or the intensity of that thinking decreases, then you have to remember coming back to be mindful of your mental state, ability to be mindful of that mental state. So that's how we can do. And another suggestion would be, if you are thinking and you can't stop thinking, do not meditate. Do other activities. Cleaning, washing, but do not watch the TV or do not watch the movie. Okay, so do some physical activities and even after doing this physical activities, if still having this thought going on, another one would be writing it down in a piece of paper, what you are thinking. Okay? And that will also help. Another one is you can do a walking meditation. And here, walking meditation doesn't mean that you have to walk in a very mindfully, slowly, all the steps. You can walk, even run, even running, but mindful running. And that helps to overcome that thought process and that thinking going on. But first, try to recognize that thinking as thinking. But if you can't, then change your object from one to something else, and that is again the effects of that thought that is causing in our body. And if not, then do the other activities, and that's how we can overcome the thought. Okay? Do you understand, Hui?
Yes, thank you.
So, but one thing you have to remember, that doesn't matter what we are thinking, it's thinking in the moment here. Okay? In the moment now, not in the past. We are living in the present. That's why it's called the Pachupanna Dhamma, ability to be mindful in this moment here and now. Okay. Right. I think it's time for us to practice loving kindness. Yeah. Loving kindness meditation. So let's start practicing loving kindness meditation. As you hear a gong, simply bringing your attention to the body and practicing. So bring your attention to the moment here and now, and reflect for a few moments on today's practice. And relax the body. We'll spend a few moments on the primary object. Settle down, grounding yourself. And we are going to practice loving kindness meditation. So bring your attention to observe the sensations in the entire body. Feeling the entire body, sensing and feeling. Whatever sensations are there, mindfully observing it. And bring that attention to your hands, observing sensations in your hands. And whatever sensations are there, the heat, the cold, the softness, the hardness. And bring that attention to your heart. Feel the beating heart. And if you can't feel the beating heart, physically smiling will connect you. So smile and feel the connection with your heart. And as you feel the connection with your heart, allowing yourself to be well and happy, free from sufferings, consciously you may repeat to yourself in your head, may I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from affliction, hostility, ill will. May I be free from anxiety, troubles of the body and mind. May I be able to maintain my happiness. And similarly, sharing loving kindness and compassion to all other sentient beings. You may think of any particular person who is in need of the loving kindness and bring into your mind of that particular person and sharing goodwill to that person. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be at peace. May you be free from suffering. May you be liberated, liberated. And similarly, all other sentient beings, visible and invisible beings, far and wide, starting from near dear one, around us, in the city, in the country, in the universe, whatever beings there are, may they be well, may they be happy, may they be free from affliction, hostility, ill will. May they be free from troubles of the body and the mind. May they be liberated, liberated. May all beings be well and happy. Now bring your attention back to your hands, mindful of the sensations in your hands. And to your body. Mindful of bodily sensations, deeply connecting yourself. And bring that attention to your eyes, Feel the tension, sensations in your body, in your eyes. Cultivating intention to open your eyes and come out from meditation. And as you hear a gong, and the third gong, slowly opening your eyes and reflect for a few moments. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. I wish you have a wonderful weekend and happy days. I wish you all the best with the practice and hope you will continue maintaining your practice, and see you next month. What a fun.
Thank you very much, Kaisan. So
Thank
the
you.
next time it will be in August the 21. Hope you can join us again.
You're
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
Okay.
Thank you.